you have learned and read in depth. During the Fabrengen, which was a Fabrengen of incredible Giluyim, Yossi Ader, Mashiach Shebeder, and Shliach Begematria Mashiach, the Rebbe stood up and danced then right after the first Sikha of Fazes and Mecharim Michoel. It was right in the middle of Parshas Hasfarim. At a certain point in the Sikha, when the Rebbe spoke about the Shluchim and asked them to say L'chaim, in the second Sikha, the Rebbe said a short line, which Fiadias Daiti is very relevant to everyone sitting here. We all know that one of the biggest enemies of the Rebbe is Amalek, Chassidus, Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe was very, very adamant about something we can Amalek, and I have to be mevatel all status, because a suffix in and of itself is already a siman of not good things. But just to give you an understanding of what the chaos of Simchas Torah was, and that how it was an avir where the Rebbe took anybody and everybody who wanted to have a shaykhus. The Rebbe roped everyone in the course of this most Giluyim Dikka time of the year. The Rebbe says then about the Shluchim saying L'chaim, that if someone has a suffix, whether or not he goes into the together of a shliach, he should say L'chaim. So instead of saying that a suffix is a terrible thing and it's a sin on something, Chatz v'sholom, not what it should be, the Rebbe says the very inyan that he has a suffix is a raya that he has a shaykhus to it. Maybe he should also say L'chaim. In other words, over here the Rebbe said that suffix is a good thing. It's a good sin. And this was, in general, the avir of Simchas Torah. The Rebbe's Ushpiz is that everyone who was in the Daladamas during that time felt an incredible and unparalleled closeness to the Rebbe. Numerous times in that Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, as we saw this Ibergeben zu Diva seine Nidda. So clearly, what the Rebbe said then, what the Rebbe did all the years and said all the years, he had all of us, as we stand here today, in mind. And this is specifically what the Rebbe was giving the Giluyim for. It's only a question of the Chira Chavshis of every one of us to take all of the things that we're about to hear and to bring it down into our own Aveda B'Peil, and to recognize that these are Giluyim that are given to us, even just by virtue of the fact that we hear it. We're going to begin from the beginning of Sukkos, and we'll go through our Chashavah panel here today. First, around all that we can possibly hear in the course of the next half an hour, a few minutes for each of the panelists describing specific elements of Sukkos, and I'm sure they have other things to say, maybe a little bit before Sukkos and after Sukkos also. Everyone will soak in every word, and then after that we'll talk about Simchas Torah more in detail. So we're going to begin with one of the most touched of Chassidim Deren, Rabbi Meir Harlig, who had the incredible Sukkos over the years to be the Rebbe's agent, allowing all of the Yidden who wanted to make a bracha, the little bit esrog, the history behind that, and the making of the little bit esrog itself. Chalukah of the Dalad Minyan and Michoel, the first days of Yom Tov, by our Harlig Rebbe, the Meir.
You see, You should thank Rabbi Deren for this beautiful introduction. One day when you'll speak, I'll introduce you also. I want to give a little synopsis, but not all of you were around and maybe didn't know about Tishrei. Tafshin, by all the Rebbeim, there was just a custom that Rosh Hashanah they said a minor. Tafshin Yud Beis, the Rebbe said before Rosh Hashanah that you should prepare Harlig and wine because he wants to eat one Suda with the Meir for Rosh Hashanah. So the custom was the Rebbe washed. He said to sing the Nagunim to the Rebbeim. Then he said a Seder. Then the Rebbe got up and he threw challas to the whole island. Especially, there was a man, one Helderman from New Jersey. Originally he was from Italy. If you don't remember, in the Zal there was a fan on the wall, and he stood there. The Rebbe got up and threw him a special challah. Then we walked bench and kosher bracha. Then the Rebbe said the minor. Also, Tafshin Yud Beis, before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe used to tell lectures by his desk in his room. And how long did it take those days? 20 minutes. Then he called in the school and he asked him if there's a custom that you can go to the oil on Yom Kippur. So I think he told him yes, and the Rebbe went to the oil, and he came back late, and he said, "Brachas and this." So then, after they finished the 4 kapitlas and all the foundation, the Rebbe turned around and he said, instead of sitting and doing nothing in Kippur at night, it would be a good thing that if we say the whole Tehillim. So there was a man, he got up and the people told him to say it very fast because the Rebbe should be able to go home and rest. When everybody finished, the Rebbe was up to either to pay or pay out. So he was motioning, no, that somebody should go over to the Amud. But nobody wanted to go over to the Amud, so the Rebbe got up himself and went to the Amud and from the Pittel pay. Till the end, the Rebbe cried tears, noises, until he finished the last kapitel. Also, there was a man who used to blow shofar for the Frierdiker Rebbe, and Tafshin Yud Beis, the Rebbe called him in and told him that he should learn the Kavanas, Kiyas Shefer, and Alter Rebbe Siddur. So he told the Rebbe he knows what to learn. So the Rebbe said, "Thank you very much, I'll find my own qualification." Then he called in, if you ever heard of the Shmuel Zalmanov, and he said that he used to daven. He said he should also blow shofar. So he said he can do both together, and he nominated Mental Tenement. That's how he came into the picture to blow shofar. Tafshin Yud Beis also, the Rebbe brought down the pajamas that was the only time in Kippur. And he put it in his standard. By the Hafsaka, before the Rebbe went out, he turned around to me and he said, "Darling, the pajamas, are you going anyplace?" I said, "No, I'm going to be here." So he said, "Watch the pajamas, make sure nobody touches it, nobody opens up his standard. Are you sure you're going to be here?" So I said, "Yes." The Rebbe went out. When he came back to Mincha, he said, "Everything went through, nobody touched it." And I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm going to see you care." It was also the custom that Yud Gimel at night, when the Rebbe came back from the oil, that's when he used to pick out the esrogim. And Yosef, when he came back from his house, that's when he picked the Rebbe, and it took him a long time. He picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down, till he picked out a sufficient amount of Rebbe, what he needed to give out to the people. He gave to the people that the critical Rebbe gave, and also he started a new custom to give to the shluchim from the heads from London, from Paris, from the Ruchni and the Gashmi from Israel, and the Ruchni and the Gashmi from Australia, South Africa, and all these people. Then it was, when it was about an hour before Yosef, an hour and a half, the Rebbe went into his sukkah. The first years, the Rebbe used to have 36 hadassim. So to bind 36 hadassim, you needed wide leaves. But, so I went to look through the oven, and I prepared on the table in the sukkah wide leaves, also a scissor, and also a knife. But he never used those, he only used the leaves from his own lulav. And also, he cut off about this much from the stem of his lulav. And it took him about 3/4 of an hour to bind the lulav and prepare it for Yom Tov. Always before he went into the sukkah, he looked up and he asked me, so the dach is aufgedeckt, so we can reingehen, binden and lulav. I used to say yes. And the Chayev from the Friedrich, how did it start with the Rebbe giving out the lulav? The Chayev from the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe used to take down the lulav, and he used to give it to the Olam to bench. And he used to sit on the side, and he used to drink something and eat some cake. So one of the older Chassidim went over to him, and they told him it's not proper, it's Hamish Kaplan, and the Rebbe's Aiden asked the Rabbi, the Zaynus, so the Rebbe answered him, Azach was Chassidim too, and as if the Shtor was the Shem. The first years, the Rebbe came. The first years after Tafshin Beis and Gimel, the Rabbi used to stay himself in the sukkah. Till Tafshin Beis. Tafshin Beis, the second night sukkah, I was standing downstairs, and a bacher came, then another bacher came, I was afraid to go, which the night before, but the last, and some of the old people said things what they shouldn't, and we whatever. But the third bacher came, so I come upstairs, I come into his room, and the room is full. So Rebbe or Yom Tov, the Chadikah is near the Rebbe's room. So I figured he doesn't want to talk here, there's so many people. I come into there, she said the Rebbe's room is there. I come in, the Rebbe's sitting with a big Chassidus facing Kingston Avenue. Because behind his desk, if you're in the room, there's lights on the wall. In Yom Tov, Shabbos, the Rebbe used to put on those lights. He said, morgen noch komme später, sonst dann after my lulav and esrog, you should take my lulav and esrog, lock it up in a safe place, and when you come, you start benching with all the people, and then when I come, you'll make hefsek, and I'll bench lulav and esrog, and I prepared him something. And then he went out of and then you continue benching with the people. That was only the first year. Second year already, he told me to take the sukkah, the lulav and esrog, into the big sukkah to bench with the people. And then I went to him, and I was after that, and I wanted to give him tea. So he said, when I came to 770, I saw a big line almost to Brooklyn Avenue. I noticed elderly people. They probably didn't drink anything or they did anything before benching their lulav. So he said, you go and bench with them. I could wait. And when all the old people finish, and yes, you come in and give me to eat, to drink and eat also. One year, there was a pouring rain. It was lנדבות, every day. You know when it finished, minutes. So I asked the Rebbe that the esrog is going to get spoiled, and we should bench inside. So he said, the base, I said, the esrog, ruler, esrog, I should bench in the slipper. Also, Rebbe, the Rebbe used to give out lekker, and till it finished, it was very late. So after it finished, so I took out the empty boxes, cleaned out, pushed back the table, piled up all the sets people gave him, and then the first year he told me that Rebbe will add some lekker, and I prepared him 2 pieces of lekker, and also about the Rebbe Shulchan state that without thinking yet talk a kos wine color, so I poured him a kos wine and he drank. Then this is a good lesson for the future for you. One year he looks at his watch and he said, it's late. Call up my house and say, I want to come and eat Sukkos Yontiv, and then I'll come back without mincha and tell all the people who didn't get lekker yet not to worry. When I come back, I'll give them lekker. So I went and called up the Seligson, and she said the food isn't ready. So I told the Rebbe, so the Rebbe told me, tell her not to, so the finish Harlig, and whenever to be ready, I'll come home to eat. So when you come home, your mother doesn't have it ready, don't get nervous. Yeah, wait. And I took up most of your time already, and Rabbi Deren said, Meir, you should be good that, so we'll give over it. Yeah, many more possible people living here, and those kind of things.
Thank you, Rabbi Harlig. So, gesund sein.
Amen.
We know, you all know, it was a very important time when the Rebbe took, among other things, the Rebbe took time specifically for Yeshiva Bavana. We will hear now from Rabbi Kaplan about numerous episodes about Sukkos the Farbrengens that took place there in the earlier years. And also regarding the chalukah of the Dalet Minim to the Orchim, which Rabbi Harlig briefly touched on earlier, and we hope, of course, other details that Rabbi Kaplan was able to see and to participate in.
Thank you very much, Deren. Now, Meir, nobody is going to be able to repeat or even to compete with what you're saying, because with the I don't think anybody else sitting here had that kind of experience. They have a personally called him and gesagt and what they have. They have nach Haus, was jeder hat gesagt und jener hat gehört. In the gates of Matan Torah steht that Matan Torah was to those Asher Yeshnoi Boi v'Asher Einei Boi. It says that everybody, every neshama, every yid was by Matan Torah. The tachlis of Matan Torah was not only for those people who were there. Tzadok Bo, and all the things that we were zeicher to hear as children and as we grew up later, was from yeh verstanden and nicht verstanden. The things that we didn't get to see, the things that you didn't get to see, are as much shaykh to you as they were to us then. When we tracht durch die Sache and try to visualize then, and the aim of the kinds of things that, the kinds of ruchnis, that those of us who were there physically had, the Rebbe Shlach Edgem. It's not a dimion, it's not an imagination. You will also be able to get some of the hashpoah, herrlich novim. Sukkos hat der Rebbe auch gegeben Masach mit Kindern. As a youngster, I can tell you, after davening, we came back to 770. Crown Heights then was a completely Jewish neighborhood. Every apartment house that you see now, populated by all kinds of people. Outside the apartment houses, there are rows of old ladies sitting there waiting for a couple of Lubavitcher boys to come by with dollar meal. I remember I was there, even from the Yom, still before Bar Mitzvah, and the Rebbe just came down from the Sukkot, and I am in the lobby of 770, the little hall, and he thought that every group should give us a place where to go, which corner we should stand at the Lulu Desert. Und der Rebbe geht da ruhig, sie sagt, nun, ich da ruhig, sie gehen noch mit der Lulu. It's a typical moment. The Rebbe hat jeden Eigner sehen, the caravan inspired. Wie sie gehen mit der Lulu. That's not just Asher Yesh and everybody, every individual. The Farbrengens of Simchas Beis Hashem and Michoel were a very official event. Because the Farbrengen began the Chayav and Friedrich Rebbe. And it was the Farbrengen was a gewidmet geworden. It was the Chatchila made for Talmidei yeshivas. And there were Talmidim of other yeshivas that came as well. How many yeshivas were there? How many Bochum were there in New York? But they came also to participate and to hear. And the Rebbe traditionally spoke in Yonim V'Sigven HaShiluv for Nigla and Chassidus, but a lot of Nigla also. Some things are written down, some things are lost. The Farbrengen later on, Simchas Beis Hashem, came also as a shtickl hamshech. It came as a hamshech to the Kinnus of Tzach, which always took place on the second day of Chalamoid. So officially, this was called a hamshech of Farbrengen of Tzach. And it's different from all others, not just because it was in the Sukkah. It was different because the type of sichos that was spoken. If you see today the sichos of Simchas Beis Hashem, Asach Nikle, Asach Yisedes die Sachen reingeworfen. And it was interesting because the Rebbe in the middle of the Harlig would stop and tell David Raskin that he should give a baricht, a report of what happened at the Kinnus of which began earlier in the afternoon. So the kids who stood there also felt, as a kid myself, felt a certain kind of scandalous. The mood was less ungestrengt than sometimes the mood that the Farbrengen so ganz frisch were. We're not getting into talk about Simchas Torah later on, yes? Just so. We waited and watched for the day that we would be able also to be mentioned Yossi with the Rebbe says. So I remember as a youngster before Bar Mitzvah, all the kids would gather and watch, and just stand and watch the Rebbe. How the Rebbe responds to people. Guckt und sagt, wer wird gemacht an Nuim, wie dann auch Menschen, was gemacht an Nuim. The Rebbe generally stood. English. Oh, I went to English, I'm sorry.
An Nuim.
An Nuim is in English. The Rebbe generally used to stand with, as I remember, with one of the Magorim of the Rebbe Marash. You remember anything different, Rebbe? The Rebbe Marash, the Bichul Biksav Daske, and he would stand and look up for 1 second. People walked in and made a bracha. The Rebbe would give one look up, would say Amakam Naslahazim, and look back into the Sefer. Up and down, up and down. Anybody want to try to learn like that? Yeah. And we watched as kids when his eyes were in the Sefer, there was nothing going on. That's it. Somebody else walked in, the second up, it was nothing. It took an hour, 45 minutes in the early years. Rabbi Harlig remembers there was a half a dozen Yidden, so how long did it take? As I'm talking already, in Zion Chestis, it was 40 minutes, maybe 40 minutes.
Who went in there?
Everybody over Bar Mitzvah. Everybody. So versteht the first year I was Bar Mitzvah already. With Vav game, but you know, your hands are shaking, your feet are shaking, and everything. You know that Rebbe's going to look at you, and I'm settling down. The pachad that a kid felt just walking in there and trying to make a walk in front of the Rebbe. Every kid, the Rebbe relaxed them. A bracha, alright, boys. So every one of you would have been said the same way. The early years when the Rebbe was standing. I think that I have more to add perhaps when it comes to talking about Simchas Torah. Tell you about the Fabrengens that took place on a regular basis in the Sukkot. Every Eirach who came was a ganze Eitzer balloon. Everybody looked at him as an Eitzer to come and to be Fabrengen with the Elam. And every single night, there was a Fabrengen. And nobody waited until he was 17 years old to come to Fabrengen. We were kids, 11, 12, 13 years old. Every kid came to every Fabrengen to come and shake us. Came, stood, watched, heard a word, whatever it was, but that was the whole Aviri in 770 was there. Versteht ihr, Bishas? Mit sich zugegriffen habe ich so later when he sat by Rebbe's Fabrengen, the Aviri was a little bit different. We had a little bit of a record. We heard from Chassidim, Avot Rebbe, Avot was his Tzimtzum Fabrengen waren. We didn't come unprepared. Even as kids, we stood in the back, just watched or looked at the Rebbe, we didn't understand the Sikhs. But against the background of hearing of all the things that we heard from Elter Chassidim, and their attitude was facing the Rebbe. So our attitude, of course, was based upon the things that we heard. It wasn't the din in our Cholim. Sie haben direkt was ist Rebbe. Wir haben always given the yachas, the relationship between a young man and a bocher, how you stood in front of the Rebbe. So the way we felt when we stood in the Fabrengen was completely affected by the things that we heard from the Alter Chassidim. That's only natural. And Sukkos particularly, it was every single night.
This is Kaplan. You're saying the Lashon Ashayesh Nepei Ashayesh Nepei is actually Baruch Shekinah. That's exactly the words that Rabbi used in this Fabrengen of Simchas Torah. When the Rabbi spoke at length about the Liebig to be designed in Yishdar. We'll now hear from Rabbi Seligson, who, as you know, was Zeicha to be Asik in many different prints of Hayem Yem and received, amongst many answers, the Lashon of the Rebbe, the Chalam Mefaret Arez of the Shubach. So we'll hear now Pratim of the first days of Sukkos by the Rebbe's Daladamas.
The Rebbe Bichlal had the minhag to Fabrengen the second day Sukkos. He was like ending the first days of Sukkos, the Rebbe would wash Challah, and the Rebbe would Fabrengen. That was by the end of the second day Sukkos. This went on for, in the Messiah's years, it went on for 20 years, till Tavshin Lamed. Tavshin Lamed was the last year that the Rebbe Fabrengen in the Sukkah with the whole Elam. The Seder was that the Rebbe would wash, the Rebbe would continue with the Fabrengen. This was Challah and wine, this was the Fabrengen, the Tina, and there would be a Maimer, Sukkos Maimer, Sichas, sometimes on the Ushpizin. On one of these occasions, the Rebbe discussed the union of Shina B'Sukkah, and he gave the meaning Chabad, Chabad, not sleeping in the sukkah, Nei sukkah, different things that came up that the Rebbe discussed in these Fabrengens. Fabrengen did not go on for mamish hours like a Simchas Torah Fabrengen, and after Fabrengen, the Rebbe would have Meir, the Abdullah, and then Keishel Bracha. This is how the Seder was in general. If it was the Kriyos like this year, that the second day Sukkot was Friday, so the Rebbe waited with the Keishel Bracha till the next day. There was another Fabrengen, 1:30 in the afternoon, Shabbos Chalamed, and after that Fabrengen, the Rebbe gave out Keishel Bracha, because the night before already was before Kabbalah Shabbos, so the Rebbe made a Seder that the Keishel Bracha should be the next day. And this is how it went on, as mentioned, 20 years. It was Tavshin Lamed, that it was an accident that happened in the Sukkah. Rabbi Marla got hurt, fractured, had many fractures on his leg from a table that fell on him. And the Meir, the Rebbe said he's not taking any more achrayas that are bringing in the Sukkah. And he started to think about different eitzes, what to do. The Rebbe says if there's any place where we can't bring it, the Rebbe says it has to be close to 7-7. So there were different things that came up. The Rebbe didn't accept any of them. The Rebbe didn't consent to it. And the Meir, the next year, that there's no Fabrengen in the first day Sukkot. We were very surprised when it came to Tavshin Lamed Aleph. A Yediyah comes out from the Rebbe, there will be a Fabrengen, second day Sukkot. In Shul, and it will be Afterukim. Afterukim means no L'chaim, nothing, nothing besides the Sichas of Maimon. Nothing to say L'chaim. Bring them, and actually that year was a very special year. This was the year, as known, that the Rebbe formed his own UN. The Rebbe then chose Chassidim from all over the world that came for Tishrei, and the Rebbe appointed them that they're the delegates that represent the different countries. And there were times when Fabrengen that the Rebbe asked, "These are the big four." Big four meant it was the four, like in the UN, the four big powers. So the Rebbe gave them L'chaim separately. Simchas Torah was a whole Inyan around this Inyan of the UN. The Rebbe Mechabed them with Hakofes. The Rebbe said a Sicha standing, made the Fabrengen before Hakofes. And at a certain point, the Rebbe said that the Seder Idach, that the UN, after their session, or they go somewhere, they go to theater or somewhere, the Rebbe says, so the Rebbe says that Naim is a Machakula and it will be made to everybody. So someone rolled down from the bleachers, and this was basically what took place then, and the Rebbe said the Yetzirah, and then the Rebbe gave L'chaim to the different delegates. So this was in Tavshin Lamed Aleph. In Tavshin Lamed Beis, it's called as the Russian Tishrei. This was the Tishrei that many people came out of Russia earlier, and they came to the Rebbe for Tishrei. The Zaltzman family, others, and the Kodaitos also came then, so Bizil Shveter. That's when the Nigunim came, and the Nigunim came, arrived in Crown Heights. And there was a group of people that walked over to the Rebbe, Shabbos Chalamed. It was like, I think the Kriyas of this year, Friday night. I remember it was after Kabbalah Shabbos, it was after the first day's Yom Tov, and they asked the Rebbe for a Fabrengen. The Rebbe asked, they asked the Rebbe Fabrengen. This is what I heard from Rabbi Goredes, who was one of the roots of them. So the Rebbe told him, "Ihr seid doch nicht from Land. You're not from here, so you're not familiar that it's possible to Fabrengen the Sukkah. And the Meir, it's not possible to Fabrengen the Sukkah." So they asked the Rebbe if the Fabrengen in Shul. So the Rebbe says, "Afterukim Fabrengen sich nicht. I'm dry, it doesn't go." The Peil, the Rebbe said, "From his blind from Balchev, I won't remain indebted." And the next morning there was a Maimer, 9 o'clock in the morning, Shabbos morning. I mean, it was a day later, Shabbos Chalamed. There was a Maimer, a Maimer at 9 o'clock, an hour before Shabbos. Downstairs was the place where the Rebbe sits by Fabrengen. There was also a Seligson the Shalom for them that Tishrei. There were even many Kiruvim. The Rebbe gave out mashke to them by Fabrengen. The Rebbe asked them to sing the Nigunim. There was the first time that the Rebbe spoke in Russian, a Sikha by Fabrengen. Mitzovim Lamed Aleph was the first time that the Rebbe spoke in Bilo the Fabrengen. The Rebbe started he was giving over a teichel of a previous sikha, and this was the first time I was in the Kabbalah, the Elam that came. Another time that the Rebbe also was concentrating all on the first days in Shul was basically Fabrengen Tavshin Lamed Dalet. It was then that the war broke out in Israel and the Kippur. And the first day, Sukkos, we got an idea that Rebbe's Fabrengen. Everybody's wondering how's it going to work. After all, in Shul, there was a Fabrengen then. I never saw a Nochum for that Fabrengen. I never saw something in print from that Fabrengen. The only thing that we all remember from that Fabrengen was the famous Pisgah of Mola Oretz Fabrengen. That Rebbe spoke that Bochum Madrein sich on Kingston Avenue, mit tut gar nicht, mit dreht sich, man spielt, man not doing anything. Und man darf sitzen und Fabrengen. And Goshit, man spielt, man Fabrengen. And that's when they started Fabrengen everywhere. The Rebbe said it should be a Mola Oretz Fabrengen. This is the only thing from that Sikha Kabbalah. I've said others, I think I never saw any Anocha from that Fabrengen. The Meir did come out, so my Michoel Sukkos but not the Sichas. Another time that Rebbe Fabrengen that year was Shabbos Chalamet. It was then that the Israeli army was already on the front and fighting, engaged in fighting with the Syrians. The Rebbe was pushing very much they should conquer Damascus, even for a day, to pale and feel Saruach by capturing and conquering a capital of the country. And the Rebbe was pushing it very much. We see it also in the Sichas in early winter of Dalet. So the Rebbe then again, Fabrengen in Shul, again after Shabbos Chalamet, and the Rebbe spoke a whole lot of difference in the year of Damascus. How it is in Tanakh, how it is in Kabbalah, how it is in the Mishnah in Sefer Chala, which happens to be the Sion of Chala that the Rebbe made on Rav Tishrei 4 days before the war. The Rebbe was speaking about Alexandria, Mitzrayim, and Damascus. Another thing that happened the first days was that the Rebbe would come into the Sukkah, to the big Sukkah, to visit the Orchim, to speak to them. The Orchim were all sitting, how many Orchim fit in the Sukkah. The Rebbe asked for the Dichta, and the Rebbe would walk around, and then the Rebbe, there was one point the Rebbe asked for a bench to stand up, and the Rebbe would speak a Sikha to them. And this, and Meir Yaroslavsky, who was the one that founded the Union of Asia, would push it walking with the Rebbe. The Rebbe wanted him to walk ahead. He wasn't comfortable to walk in front of the Rebbe, so the Rebbe said he's under the Machna Seirach, the Balabas. So he walked from the side, and the Rebbe walked in, and looked around, and the Rebbe stopped at a point and said a Sikha. So maybe this was all already, even when the Orchim started to come already, so it was from year to year, in the Sukkos, there was a Sikha that took place then. There was one year that it was Shabbos Shuvah, that the Rebbe was on the way home. He went through Kingston Avenue. He went up where the Caleb is now. Originally it was called the Kaplan. The Binyan had many names. And the Orchim were eating their Shabbos Shuvah, so the Rebbe came to them and gave them a bracha. Another Binyan, and I'll conclude with this, which also began in the first days, was the Beis HaSheva. The Rebbe started to speak Sichas every night, Tovshin and Malach and Am. Every night there was Sichas. 1 year, a second year, third year, people didn't know from one night to another, and the Rebbe started one night after another, a year after a year. It was Hakil and Aleph, and it went through the days. The Rebbe connected it with the Shpizim, the Rebbe connected it with the Shurichitas. When it started the Limud HaRambam, the Rebbe connected with Shir Rambam. And then there was Chazorah, it was Pashat HaReichke, the Gishmak, that right after the Rebbe left, the Rebbe went back to his room after the Sikha, the Elam would Sikha and Kutzas, and the light would not go home. To the Suda, to the Chazorah, to the Mid Chazorah, it was like the first of Gishmak, every Sikha was like, it was a special like Buyim, Ein Sikha, Zweite Sikha, Third Sikha. The Rebbe would say from the place by down. Sometimes, I mean, speaking from a point of view of needing to write down the Sikhas after that, it was sometimes difficult for us. It feels like this year, there were 3 Sikhas, 3 nights that we couldn't write it down to Michoel Shabbos. So it was Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night. But this was a whole new chayas, and actually this sparked the Simchas Beis HaShem in the streets. Because when the Rebbe started to speak so much about the of Simcha, Wacher and Feld, sitting by Fabrengen is not enough, and Aftan Tznigas. So it started with a few cheder in the street, it's now, and then it developed into a whole Beis HaShem. The Rebbe spoke about it many times. The Rebbe spoke at the Gas and Mikans, and the Rebbe spoke at Shabbos, I mean, from the Shus HaYochid. it becomes a rikud, a circle. Coming young that Rebbe's misachas, the Rebbe said that our Eichschlag in the Politzei, you should also dance. And many different young. There was one time the Rebbe said, "Was afraid of Politzei in the Shlichus and Yikumen, was it nice? What's taking place?" Different young that the Rebbe referred to it, and the Rebbe was very much mechaber. This is basically all connected with the first day Sukkos.
Rabbi Katzman will now continue about the Sukkos Beis Hashem and how it evolved together with the Meir that Rebbe gave about the Shluchos Galari Asada to create Sukkos Beis Hashem there. But Kamen Nochum after you, Rabbi Katzman, thank you for the fact that 4 years Shabbos after Shabbos was able to stand up and bring them. Thanks to the entire league.
I'm looking forward to standing in. I'm going to let you be there, even though you're much bigger than me. If I would know with whom I'm sitting on the panel when they ask me, I probably would say no, because they have the real things. I'm going to have to give as a commentary from the side, or maybe a little more from the reaction, how I grew up as a child in the Chofs, then in the Lamets, the Bocher, and then in the Mems. From the early memories that I have, first of all, just for the record, there was no such thing before Sukkot that everybody went crazy buying for an essay. Well, about Shidna, we gave an essay. But everyone else, we had the Rebbe's essay at the bench, and the only reason you needed another set, you needed your own set, was because you had to go Mitzvah Daled Minim. As Mitzvah Daled Minim was one of the first Mitzvahim that the Rebbe established. Way in Tavshin Daled and Gimel. So this was part of the, but that was your only focus. Erev Sukkos, the focus was who is getting an essay from the Rebbe. So for those who were able to afford the time, they didn't have to build their own sukkah or they wiggled their way out of home. You hung around 770 to see who were the ones, and what Harlig did not mention, for example, is that Rebbe also gave an essay to Zohar Begedel. Zohar Begedel was a major thing by the Rebbe, first the Israelis and then the French, and then it grew over the years. As a kid, there were a bunch of sukkahs around 770. There was the Rebbe sukkah in the front, there was the big sukkah for the Elam on the side, there was another sukkah on the second floor in the Rebbe's apartment. And when I was a child, the Rebbe used to eat there Sukkos Yom Tov. So I remember conceptually, people would not go up. Like by the Seder, many people would go and watch the Rebbe by the Seder. By Sukkos of Yom Tov, otherwise, it was not so accepted. I do remember once there was a bocher who came down to the sukkah after the Rebbe finished eating, and he said he was there. And he had Shadam Shabbat from the bocher, and he's probably telling his great-grandchildren about it. I actually see some here, whatever. In any case, an interesting thing, when the Rebbe used to finish the Sukkah, he used to daven Mincha afterwards. Mincha was not like at a later time, but rather an earlier time, like 2:30 or 3. The Rebbe used to daven in the small zal after he finished the Sukkah. What was Sukkot as a child? Another thing that was very special for me, and maybe I hate to reveal it, it's not a very complimentary thing, but there was a shtickle balabatishkeit approach to the first day's Yom Tov. I don't know why. Today, we cannot call it that. But there was such a thing that certain bochum used to go away. They used to go home for the first day's Yom Tov. I mean, later it's called but apparently in the Chofs it was still acceptable. Which meant that a few places opened up by the Fabrengen. me as a kid, it was good, because by the Sukkos and Fabringen, I've always had a good place, like a normal place. Usually as a child, the later years you saw the kids used to sit mamish around the Rebbe. When I was a kid, we didn't sit around the Rebbe, but what we did do, we sat under the Rebbe's table. The bimah was made of tables, not of the fancy bimah like today, so we were pushing holes. And we used to sit under the table and pray that a drop of wine should fall down from the Rebbe, or a piece of cake. And sometimes we did things that we were not supposed to do, but I'm not going to mention that now. So Sukkos, we had that place. I remember having a very coveted place. I was mamish, like in the first shura, and next to Michoel was standing there. And I don't remember if any, it's like if any of the Kaplan brothers were there. I remember specifically, he's from Meir. I remember I was sitting between them. I had a first row. What do I remember? I remember, again, Rabbi Seligson will probably tell me the exact year, but I think it was Chodala, or maybe Chodgimel, when Rebbe Futafas came the first time. Rebbe and Rebbe Sasson came. He came Kislev Chodala, so this is Tishrei Chodayim. So Chalamed Sukkos, the Rebbe was Mechabed in the middle of Fabringen, by the Fabringen. He was Mechabed Reb Mendel and Reb Moshe to sing Aniden that they sang in Russia. As a kid, to me, they looked like two brothers because they both wore caps and they both had big beards. I thought they were two brothers, and they were singing Aniden, was gesungen dort. Another scene I remember from the Fabringen was by one of the Keshel Brochas, which I remember, I think was the same as like now, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, and the Keshel Brochas was Shabbos by day, and it was a tremendous rain. And the Rebbe stood and gave Keshel Brocha in the rain. And the tnuas of Simcha, how the Rebbe was made, was extraordinary. It was like something as if fakir, you know, how the Rebbe reacted many times. If somebody wanted to give him an umbrella or something, the Rebbe said, why should you want to protect yourself from it? So the Rebbe saw Gishme Brocha in the Sukkah, it said Gishturen. There was a certain scene where the Rebbe threw off his coat. I just have a vague memory of that.
Sukkos Choftes. Second Fabrik, zweiten Tag, Sukkos, Choftes, die Küche gefällt.
Okay, see, I don't remember mine was the same. From the first Michoel was of course Mivtza Lulav. So together with that, what later developed into mitzvah tanks or sukkah, so the first projects that took this form was Taka Sukkos also. Sukkos, they started with little trailers, U-Haul trailers that used to hook up the cars, and then they got the pickup trucks or flatbed trucks. And you can see, they always used to wait for the Rebbe to come and see the truck parked in front of 770, and you saw a special Nachas on the Rebbe's face when he saw this. The major occupation in terms of a mivtza that Chassidim were busy with was Simchas Beis HaShe'el that the Rebbe time geführt, in addition to the fact that we spoke before there were Fabrengens. First of all, there were 3 major Fabrengens in Crown Heights every Sukkos, especially the second night. There was the Fabrengen of Mendel Futterfass on Empire Boulevard. There was the Fabrengen of Rabbi Meir, wherever he used to Fabrengen by one of his children. And there was the Fabrengen that Rabbi Harlig was very nervous about what I was going to tell him in Rabbi Harlig's Sukkah. Those were the 3 classic Fabrengens. The focus was on Sichas. Actually, the Rebbe addresses it in one of the Sichas. I think it's in Beis or in Gimel. The Rebbe speaks about the fact that by Chassidim Amol, instead of dancing, they used to focus on Fabrengen. So Simchas Beis HaSheva, the Rebbe instituted that you should travel to Orei HaSodeh. They would travel to within relative driving distance, probably up to 4 or 5 hour to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, and they would organize groups of Chassidim to go and Fabrein. At a certain point, the Rebbe gave very specific heroes, and he wanted that these Fabreinas should include like a mini United Nations. Every Fabreina should include somebody from Eretz Yisrael, somebody from Europe, and somebody from another continent, and somebody from here. That was a major occupation. I remember Rabbi Castel, that was running from morning to night, finding people to put together for trips. I remember my first almost speeding ticket I got was on one of those trips. And the Rebbe insisted he wanted a duch of every Fabringen with all the details and who was there. Just to fill in the detail of that Rabbi Seligson mentioned, 2 little points. Number one, Tafshin Lamed, what broke was actually the whole bina they built for the Fabringen. The entire bina collapsed. It wasn't just like one table or something, but the bina that people were standing on, the whole bina collapsed, and Rabbi Meir stood at the back. So they all ended up on top of him. Another Nakuda, when the Rebbe was speaking to the Russians, when they came to ask the Rebbe for a minor, for a Fabringen, the Rebbe apologized to them and said, it's not your fault. Over the Bible, the Rebbe gave them a chelik for all the chatoim of the Crown Heitzers. Everything that we did wrong, so these newcomers from Russia had to be the Kabul. If I remember correctly, the Rebbe used an expression, in ganz New York in Ishtoki Bedin, or the Rebbe complained that somebody came into the yeshiva to eat. They threw him out because he's not a Talmud yeshiva, he's on Meir. So it was a very interesting reaction from the Rebbe.
Story from a trip to Orei HaSodeh. Someone was in the car, Rabbi Reichik. He received a lulav and esrog from the Rebbe, and when he went out to Orei HaSodeh, he took it with him. I guess maybe it went earlier in the day. But he sat in the car, the person was sitting there. He sat in the car so he wouldn't let go of it. He was holding the lulav and esrog in his hands the whole time. They stopped in the car for a few minutes, place on the side of the road, put it down on the roof, and then he got back into the car. Obviously, he missed it by a second. He forgot for a second, and the car started driving off. And he gives like a shleiman ribo. They stopped right away, and it was already a while down the road. The car had flown down the road, and there was cars already going by it. And he walked out to get the lulav and esrog to see what happened to it. It was probably damaged. The lulav and esrog, the lulav was on the side of the road, totally undamaged, and the esrog was on the middle of the yellow line, perfectly straight without any damage. So he picked it up and took it home. Before we go to Sukkos and Simchas, I'm one of the Rebbe that went home one year for Sukkos for the first days. Not only stopped for Sukkos, but it was as we know, Nun Beis was the big Sukkos. So I'd like to ask Meir, Rabbi Harlig, Rebbe Meir, to please give a detailed description of what happened on that morning, as much as you can, for the 6 hours that the Rebbe stood. I got from already saying thank you for certain things. I came back after Yom Tov, realized what kind of idiot I was. So I wrote, at least I should, I wrote in explaining where I was, what I did, and I also spoke about that. I more serious than my Chabad Mendy Harlig. I wrote 2 things about Yeshiva and about deciding where I was for the first day, so it was the only time I was there to have the master actually showed me the Savyad of the Rebbe's answer on the Gilead. Kaplan, I felt, and will now ask Rabbi Harlig to please tell us the details of that day.
The custom was that the Rebbe came, he went into his room, he brought out the lulav and nestle, and he used to ask me if the sukkah is open, and he went into his room, into the sukkah, and he benched Esrog and lulav. Then a short while later, he opened up the door, and the Esrog and lulav was on the table, and he said, I should take it to the people, and on the time of it happened during all the years that sometimes the Rebbe wanted to change the Esrog and the lulav, etc., etc. This time, he opened up the door, and the Rebbe was walking with the lulav and Esrog in his hand. So I asked the Rebbe, did the Rebbe bite me? You want to change something or whatever? So he said, no. Man is behind, it must stay in LA. Just today, I'm going to stand myself and show me where you make lessons for ruler with the people. And it started 10 after 8, and it finished 10 to 3. He was standing in the middle. Grummy told the Rebbe it's already 11 o'clock. Must have been Shachar. So the Rebbe told him the davening. Then Shimshon Stark came over, and he said, he brought the Rebbe's chair, and he said the Rebbe should sit down. So the Rebbe said, how could I sit outside? There's a whole line of people standing like this. I should sit down. It's not proper. One more Nakuda I wanted to tell you, I reminded myself, Tafshin Yud Beis, the second day Sukkos, as Rabbi Seligson said, the Rebbe used to wash Harlig. In the middle, he asked if anybody knows what time it is, because the people who didn't wash and wanted to say L'chaim, they could say L'chaim there. Nobody said, he said, no, nobody has a watch. What did I know from anything? I took off my watch and I gave it to the Rebbe. He put it down on the table, he looked at it, and then the Rebbe finished for bringing, he benched, and he got up, he picked up the watch, and he said, Agoisi Shukeya, you know, I want to talk when it's Kazegi. Later, after Kosher Brach and this, Meir and Shmuel came over to me, the Simpson, they told me. So I said, nobody ever taught us in yeshiva then. So then they told me that's when the Rebbe was shot, when people wore Sukkos and Simchas watches, they used to have to redeem it for money and for comfort to Mima. And the same thing by the Friedrich Rebbe and Rebbe. So you got to be very careful and not to wear a watch on your head, not even in your pocket.
We'll now move over to Simchas Torah, which is, of course, a very difficult thing to do. Not just because it's hard to convey, but also because the Rebbe on Simchas Torah, I'm sure the panelists will agree and explain more in detail. The Rebbe on Simchas Torah, there's no error to the Rebbe and the Chassidus, but the Simchas Torah, the Rebbe was many millions of miles ahead of us. I remember one Hakafis, I think it was Memches, when the Rebbe was standing by his place. I was in the middle of the shul, and the Rebbe was being aided with his hand, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the song, the Rebbe went like this. Back and forth, the Rebbe was going, they don't shlach. And all of a sudden, the roof came off the top of 770. But basically, it was very clear that the Rebbe was looking for a stronger reaction. That's a little midday. And it's not the that it drop of something that I saw to explain the incredible Giluyim. It was those days, and I think it was only in those days where they placed the bima, the Rebbe's bima on top of another bima, by the Rebbe's place, and also by the Ches. I think by the Ches, I remember, I wasn't there, but I wasn't standing right there, but I remember hearing afterwards, the Rebbe came to the Ches, and the Rebbe asked, what is this? The Meir said, as the Rebbe came to the Deren. And the Rebbe smiled and went up to the double bima. But I remember when the Rebbe walked in that night, Nun Beis, Shmini Atzeres, was and for our convenience, we gave the Rebbe 2 steps to climb up. And I remember very clearly standing there at the front, Simchas Torah, and the Rebbe was walking up the steps, and the Rebbe couldn't really see. The Rebbe wasn't yet up on top. The Rebbe walked up, holding the siddur very much bent down, looking upon the Das Kaplan tired, and I didn't know what was going on. That was going to Takafas. All of a sudden, when the Rebbe came to the top of the bima and put his siddur down on the stender, the Rebbe turned around and was mamish k'lehoya. The simcha was mildly on the shore. But in contrast to those few seconds of the Rebbe walking up the steps, you can understand what the incredible Giluyim really were, what it took, the Rebbe's gashmis to the Kadesh. We'll begin with Rabbi Harlig, again, to tell us some of the details of those incredible Giluyim. There are so many details to go through. We're talking about the Simchas Torah at night, by day. The day itself was incredible things that happened on the way to Hakafas, on the way from Hakafas. But anyway, to get to the bottom line, Rabbi Harlig.
First, how did the Rebbe start for bringing Simchas Torah before our coffers? Because the previous Rebbe asked him to bring before our coffers. That's why he bring all the years before our coffers. Simchas Torah was the Rebbe's season, so it was much more personal than a whole year. The bringing from Simchas Torah before Kaplan was a lot of time Grace in Jordan. And there was one year, I think it was in London, when the Rebbe said, we're going to start the Kaplan is different. Right away before, I'm going to say a secret to everybody to say l'chaim. And then he said, another time l'chaim. Then in the middle of the bringing, he said, there's a custom that you drink a cup and you have to make bottoms up. So he drank, he said l'chaim in the whole pot. He picked it up to show the oil, and he was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then he said above, as the melech slow, that's understood.
Everyone was saying Shah after the...
And one year, the Rebbe wanted to go a Kaplan with the kids from Simchas Hashem, Simchas Torah. So somebody was following him. So the Rebbe turned around to him and he said, I'm after Bar Mitzvah, I can find my way myself. Also, the first years, Simchas Torah, the kids used to stay on the bima, what you lane, opposite the Rebbe. And the Rebbe always used to tell me to go to the sukkah and take out all the lekach, what was left from Shana Rebbe, and give it to the kids, and make sure they all say l'chaim. There was one year Simchas Torah before our coffers, all the bochum, and the light went on the Tzayim, and to all the shuls. It was a rainy night, and there was the shuls around 770 that people used to come in to see the coffers, the Verbrengen. And people had umbrellas, whatever. He motions to me to come up to the Bima, and he gives me 2 pieces of lacquer. He points the side I was standing. He said, you go over there, and you give the 2 people standing there with, give them the zeynah, see that they say l'chaim, and that's it. I would go over there. There's many people over there. David took the gefierte for lifting back. I stopped by 2 people. They all had umbrellas and things were jingling in their pockets. I stopped in, the Rebbe shook his head. I gave him to say l'chaim, and I gave, and I said it all on the wine and the cake, and I stood there a few minutes. Then I went back to my place, and the Rebbe said a grace in Shikei. There was once a person, Simchas Torah, who asked the Rebbe that it says that whenever you say Yizka, you have to learn Asa Tiyasa. And in Eretz Yisrael, it never happened. So the Rebbe told him, just a few days ago, you wrote me a note that you want to do what I just to feel so what he asked me such a question. And the way he danced in Simchas with all the strength and this, once after Simchas Torah, I took about 8 shirts, was still wet after Shabbos Bereshis, I don't remember, and how it's supposed to have to be clean, but all the sweat and this, what happened to Simchas Torah over these 48 hours. The Rebbe always said, I do not care about the sleep for these 48 hours because it's very auspicious time.
Yeah, it was just remind me of a certain year I come from Tavshin and Ches. After that year, they were called the Yechidus HaKodesh because I couldn't come to stand in the middle of the shul that year, and then everyone went slowly around the whole Elam and looked each and every individual in his face. It took a long time, the entire class. I think that was the year it took a shot out at the beginning. And then afterwards, there was dancing alone, and it was incredibly epic.
One more thing, that after the shot left us, the Rebbe used the person to stand that coffer, dance with his father's leg.
The third and Tavshin Day is never to dance for 3 Nukulim by the 7th coffer. 3 separate Nukulim. Rabbi Kaplan.
I want to be mindful something to you. Simchas Torah in the Bach was never just a matter of dancing with the Sefer Torah. The Tachlis was always the Simcha of Simchas Torah. But till they actually got to HaKofis, the Fabrengens in the Bach and by the Rebbe also had a much more important and effective place than just HaKofis themselves. And I want to bring out a number of nekudas with regard to this. The Gilu Bir Odom. It wasn't a matter of going to HaKofis, let's go and dance. Look verbracht. But you had that thing is the Gezach. And from there you went to HaKofis. And that was the way it always was. People like I should tell the story of Tavshin Yutes. I'll tell the story of Tavshin Yutes with a little bit of personal involvement. Anybody remember which thing the Rebbe taught Tavshin Yutes? Shamil's name. To try to give you a little bit of a feeling of what it was like, the whole sukkah, the shalash, was half the size of this room. One side was completely open. The oil packed in. So there was supposedly a little bit of breeze. Shy a little bit to breathe, so supposedly. But my recollection is that we used to go home after our covers and come back into the Nigen. Came back to the Nigen, jam-packed as Kivobish. A little tiny bimmy in the middle of the shalash. The bimmy was made up of a piece of plywood on top of milk boxes. That was where the Rebbe was going to stand. And everybody was around on all four sides. As a kid, I remember seeing almost a little cloud rising up from the Eilam. That was how packed the place was. When the Rebbe came in, to walk through that kind of a little, it wasn't a matter of making a shvil. It was shvil, you couldn't move. So there were a couple of chevre with very strong arms who pushed the Eilam aside a little bit and held the place apart so the Rebbe should be able to walk through. I remember the Rebbe coming in with the bottle of mashke with a terribly serious face. He made with his hands a mizugin, but his face was terribly serious. And I remember as a kid thinking that the body language doesn't reflect what's going on in the face. They looked at their eyes were, he's very serious. And he got up on the bima and he began to tell the story of Shani. And we saw the Rebbe cry many times. We saw the Rebbe cry when he showed some tears. Sometimes a little Fabrei would break down crying. But the tears where his whole body shook. And his whole metzias was just shaking. His body was just shaking. As he told the story first to Michoel and then the Nimshah. And you can imagine what the Eilam was like, just watching him master like that. And then he began to teach the Nigen. It was a difficult Nigen. A little piece, noch a klein Stückchen. So gesessen dort in der Schulverhandlungen, Talashevsky, and Hilfrit sein dort, über den Nigen. A difficult Nigen to get. As a kid, I was shy, I wasn't capable of being to catch something which is such an idol and do it. But all of a sudden it seemed as though the pull from his face left, the Ernstkeit for a second left, the tears dried up, and Ananda Welting Ganzen, I'm talking now from the perspective of a kid. Ananda Welting Ganzen. When he used to give mashke after the Nigen to everybody who promised to have a shir les in the Chassidus, so kids weren't allowed to go over, we were still kids. But his face shined, smiles. Comments to everybody like that. Akira Badas. So you see, on the one hand, the tremendous Ernstkeit, the tears, the simcha, the Akira Badas to people. It's not human consciousness that can change like this. Verbringen, the Nigen ended about 6 o'clock in the morning. And everybody went home. As you can imagine, 9 o'clock in the morning to get up to go to the mikveh and go to Dafke, it wasn't exactly what I was doing that year. So around 12 o'clock I got up, 12:30, which was also pretty early. And I'm making my way down Kingston Avenue. I'm hurrying to Spet. And all of a sudden, as I approach Kingston Avenue and President Street, I meet the Rebbe's mother. So I've been in the house a few times. She knew me. I said, Yosef, du gehst in Shul? You going to Shul? I said, yeah. No, but let's go together. Then she said to me, of course, later I realized what it was all about. She asked me, du bist gewesen zum Nigen? Was I yesterday at the Nigen? I said, I am proud, yeah, I was at the Nigen. Was for a Nigen? So, what am I going to say say, I didn't remember the name, frankly, it was still someplace. I said, the name gedenk ich, aber der Rebbe sehr stark gewählt. I tell the Rebbe's mother, the Rebbe sehr stark gewählt. What do you want, a 12-year-old kid? So we walk together, we come down to the shalash, and normally she would go to the side where the women would stand. She went down to the 2 front doors, walks together with me. I open the door for her, she stands there, she comes in. I don't know what I was supposed to do. I'm standing next to the Rebbe's mother, she's standing at the door, and this is in the middle of Hakofas. The Rebbe is standing on top. It wasn't a beaming. A piece of Rebbe is going to be something small. Nicht wichtig was to do. I didn't know exactly what to do. I tapped the guy in front of me. A little later. Took a moment, and a shvil opened up all the way to where the Rebbe was standing. And the Rebbe turns around and he sees his mother. So he shook his head. He paid the hand kazay. She stood for a moment. She said, Yosef, and she left. Later on, somebody said to me, what are you doing there? How'd you come with her? What happened? So I told them the whole story, you know, the Tuni, I don't know what. She asked me who I was. I said I was at the Nick. Yes, and they never cried. She wanted to go see how he was. That's how my see him in sales, you know. She wanted to check out and see what's going on. But this is a little nice of my personal issue. The thought is, every child, some of it's new. Your place is don't do the Rebbe is. 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Don't lose the Rebbe, that's your place. We also knew that as much as we don't know, but just to be there, that's what's going to lift us up. That's what's going to do everything for us. The Ma'amad U'Matzev of a bocher is not to think to himself, they will come in and make a cheshbon, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You have to be where the Rebbe is. Be a chassidim, not where the Rebbe is. That's your job. That's one nikud I want to say. Another nikud. Shmini Atzeres Tov Shin Yud Ches. Now, the shalash used to have a little roof which would go over from the building 770 into the shalash a little bit, because that was the roof in front of the garage doors. You know what the shalash was? It was a big parking area, and there was a quadruple garage, which is today the library. And there were big garage doors there, and over the garage doors there was a little roof. The roof was about 5 feet wide. The sukkah and the shalash went over the little roof, and the beams of the sukkah went to the top of the little roof. That year, about 15 kids decided, what are we standing in the back of Kaplan trying to see the Rebbe? Let's lay down on the roof. There was about this much space between the schach and the roof. We'll lay down on the roof. The kachava, we lay down on the roof with Gilei. And the Rebbe took note. He saw us a bunch of Yidladot. So he told each one of us individually to say l'chaim. Like this. Everybody individually said l'chaim. The simas lev for a kid sitting on top of the roof over there, everybody got that individual attention.
Undergarments.
All undergarments. Kids, where the kids? As time went on, of course, the Eilah became so much bigger. Just to turn over from a Fabrengen to a place where we can engage Sarkophis was a tremendous. You can imagine what it means. A couple of thousand people getting up all of a sudden, and you have to turn the whole room around, and all the furniture has to move to the sides, building the pyramids, and the Rebbe's coming down in 45 minutes. I mean, humanly, how it happened, I don't know. Somehow it happened, and nobody got hurt, but somehow it happened. When the room was smaller, but the room was smaller also, just changing it around. I never remember, in all the years, that the Rebbe should come down, the Olam should not be ready it was superhuman chaos to get it ready. When the Rebbe came down for Hakofis, everything was changed. 7-7 was a different place already. When the Rebbe came down to Hakofis, and it was basically, let's say, at 1:30 in the morning generally, a little bit later, the Elah was different, the mood was different, the place was different. You couldn't almost recognize what happened before. And when the Rebbe came in, so he always came in, his face was always lit up, and always the simcha immediately as he turned from the door going into the shalash, is glad he made the hand, and glad he's looking at a place he used to jump and dance. As they built the shul, things went, there was a larger Elah, a larger place. It just continued to expand. But the metzias of that swap, that change from the Mudu B'Fabrengen, which is also a simcha B'Fabrengen, to the matzah of Hakofis, was, I don't know, for my Kleinei Yigimach, a miraculous event that came forth every year on Hezekis, and everything changed and took place properly. Wait, somebody else a chance to talk also. So, start.
Rabbi Seligson.
It's interesting to make להמשיך to what Harlig mentioned, Rabbi Kaplan mentioned, that there were interesting things happening those 2 days. People, the Rebbe encouraged people, Simchas Torah in the morning, to make Yiddish. Matzkidim others was questioned like, while Atoresa was happening before Atoresa, by Kriya. And there were certain people that felt very mekuravdik to the Rebbe, very comfortable. So maybe they would go over to the Rebbe. One time by a coffee, somebody went over to the Rebbe and said that this person is drinking mashke, 86 proof. Mashke, what does it mean in Avedas Hashem? So the Rebbe said he's going to that office, and when he's going to come back, he'll explain it. The Rebbe said 86 is the Gematria Shem Avikim. Then he comes weiter and he says, this one is drinking 96. What does that mean? The Rebbe says 96 is Shem Adna and Shem Keel together. That's a Gematria of 96. These like tidbits that were happening in our coffers. There were times that the Rebbe encouraged, there was someone that came with a professor from Jerusalem, and the Rebbe said he should play Chai, he should make Yiddish. So he said that he didn't make Yiddish at the Halbers, like the Rebbe says he should make Yiddish on his own. He should not be Yetzer with anybody but make his own Yiddish. There was Dr. Weiss, who was there, especially right after Lamadches. He came, the Yom Tevin, Tishrei B'Chulo, and there was one point after our office, after it's a good ungearbeitet our coffee, the Rebbe showed him on the pulse. So he got scared, the Rebbe is talking about his own pulse. She was ready to go up, the Rebbe says, no, check your own pulse. See how much is strained within the Gunim. There was the Katzman in the morning, Simchas Torah in the morning, with an interesting legendary Rabbi Shlomo Kazanovsky. And he, Deren, and he had the outside Simchas Torah. The Rebbe would usually give him a bottle of mashke. I feel a lamadches in the room. The Rebbe gave him a bottle of mashke as a fabrengo. And he Deren for the Yomet. So, sie gewähnt nach Torres, on final where he had the Kriya Satera, when he nemt some Sefer in hand, and he's starting to say Shema Yisrael. And the Rebbe turned, the Rebbe is looking, the Rebbe makes with his hand, and the Rebbe starts him on Nochum. In those days, Sheishanerata, that lately was publicized, a video, a picture from the Rebbe standing dancing by Nochum. This was Sheishanerata. And also, Sheminitzeret Simchas Torah was very much encouraging Nochum, the Pashat B'Chanan gesungen. And even once when they forgot to sing it by the Sukkos and Simchas Torah, the Rebbe encouraged, when they brought the Sefer Torah back to the Kodesh, the Rebbe saying, the Rebbe started to sing on the Abda when they were saying Harlig. There were different, when the Rebbe went to our conference, many people said, gave the Rebbe Brochi, and the Rebbe would answer Amen. And there were also autistic people that the Rebbe dropped a line to them. For example, there was one person there that was from Deutschland, and the Rebbe said that you should see to make German, Berlin, Lubavitch. Then the Rebbe came back from our office, he met the person again, the Rebbe says 10 minutes has passed since then, what did you do about it? The next day he chose again to stand there at the entrance to the mess, and he asked, and again the Rebbe said 10 hours have passed, 12 hours have passed, what did you do about it? After Yom Tov, we went to Yechidus, the Rebbe gave Meir, there was one time that the device is closed, and the Rebbe couldn't get into the Schloss, and the Rebbe gave someone to the table, put him on the table, and they jumped into the Ches. So later it became the Ches. He sat down. But it was, and he gave someone to the table, and then he sat down and he went into the dust. He was pushing, he couldn't get in from the other way. Bechlal, when the Rebbe would dance sarcophagus, the Rebbe would look at individual people also. It wasn't something that was just doing. The Rebbe was sometimes stopping in concentration, looking at a group of people with the head, like stopping. It seemed like he was stopping, but he was holding one hand on the Rashak, and the Rebbe was be'eided them zinken. It was like the Rebbe was buying individual people. After Hakofes, the Rebbe would usually hold the Rashak for a few seconds, and once the Rebbe saw he's already settled down, that's when the Rebbe go. The Rebbe got they gave the Rebbe the Siddur back. The Siddur was usually kept by him on the streets. He held the Rebbe Siddur, and then the Rebbe started his way back by daytime. Yeah, because he remembered the alle Hakofes zusammen, so it was and then the Rebbe made his way back. Another union, which was also mentioned before by the Simchas Torah, the Rebbe's day, was that Simchas Torah morning, without fail, whenever the Rebbe came into Shachris, it's going to clean a regel. I remember as a kid, in the Chofs, we were able to count how many people were there. It was almost a third of the shul. And the Rebbe came in, he would start singing Simchas Torah, his father's name. There was every year before Shachris, the same number still that Hala started to call, then the Rebbe turned around, and Hegel started, was even the Seder from Shachris. And Shachris would finish Shachris, I think it was about 2:30, everything finished. The Rebbe Shachris, Vidal Reza, Vidal Years, it was like 2:30, so it was like a long day, a long tefillah from 10 to 2:30. If there was a Friday at the Fabrengen or any Fabrengen at the Flau, we had to get ready the next few hours where there was a Fabrengen, they were for example, talking about the Kriyas in Chastera, this year, in a Kriyas like this, we had 4 Fabrengens. We had one Thursday night before Hakofes. We had one Friday before Shabbos, short Fabrengen. The Rebbe generally did not continue after the Shkia. So it was basically a short Fabrengen, how long it was able to last places without benching. And then Shabbos in the daytime was Shabbos Mevarach and Cheshvan was a Fabrengen 1:30, and then there was a Fabrengen 6 o'clock. We were having that from the first Fabrengen Shabbos to the second one stayed in their place because Anish Heitzach was on weiter catching a place with Hulu. And the second Fabrengen was 6 hours. So we had 4 Fabrengens in 2 days. The Chazim were going around Wismensch. What was in this Fabrengen, what was in that Fabrengen? Sometimes there's a word, I'm not sure if it's the first Fabrengen or second Fabrengen. The first Fabrengen, generally, most of the people were Kalucha. And if the Rebbe said, go to someone, one of the Rabbanim that's printed in the Igris, so this is a Messias Nebush Abacharim, that by Fabrengen, they can push it, the Fabrengen, while the Fabrengen is going on, they're somewhere, they're on the Shlichus in Kalucha. This is basically what it was. I remember one time, so I got a statement to Absalom Ber, Levitin, so like one show he was Lamed Aleph, Simchas Torah on Friday, and everybody was going home. This was ready after Kabbalah the Shabbos, after the second Fabrengen, and the Rebbe's window was a little open. Shade was open. He says, looking what's going on. The Rebbe was sitting and learning like nothing happened. Pasha sitting and learning like this was after 2 Fabrengens and dancing 2 days. Was sitting beyond, I think he told me even the name of the Sefer, it was Ram, Chumash, Mizrahi. And actually I reminded him this year again, and I asked him if I was standing or sitting, I wasn't sure. So there was Moshe sitting with Menuchas HaNefesh, like the real Indian of Atzloch Zman. And then the next day came the 2 Fabrengens. One was 1:30, one was 6 o'clock. Then Veishel Bracha, another 3.5 hours. This was the biggest day on Veishel Bracha, after the whole Tishrei. Next day the Rebbe went to the Eyal, and that's when then Yechidus started, which went on for about a week. About 1,000 people, Yechidus, Protis, went on a whole week, and then Beis was the first time started Yechidus clothes.
We are about to show the video, but we'd like to hear a moment or two from Rabbi Katzman to conclude the evening.
I think you heard two things here about Simchas Torah. In general, the Simchas Torah, and I heard from everybody, from Rabbi Seligson, from Rabbi Kaplan, they emphasized the fact that the Rebbe paid attention to the individual. And I think this is something that fascinates, and should fascinate everybody. The Rebbe standing with so many thousands of people, and the Rebbe was looking out for individuals. And it was reciprocal. People felt that, yes, this is my time. I remember one of the things that people used to take advantage was that you can approach the Rebbe and ask for brachas. So I remember one year, I made my place in the shvil, so when the Rebbe goes to HaKofes, I can go both ways. The one, when the Rebbe is on the Bima, I can go to the front. When the Rebbe is by HaKofes, I can go to the back. And when the Rebbe had to go by, we would hide under the table to let the Rebbe go by. So I remember the Rebbe was walking by with the Sefer Torah, and he looked down to all of us, to each and every one. And he even moved the Sefer Torah towards us to be able to give the Sefer Torah. And I had with me a man that needed a bracha, and from under the table he asked for a bracha, and the Rebbe gave him a bracha. As a follow-up, years later, I remember I needed whatever I needed a bracha in my family, and somehow I missed HaKofes. But because we knew that the Rebbe is accessible, so I took advantage, and me and the whole problem with the Meir not the gay, but there was another Jew here in Crown Heights who was not well, so me and the Rebbe, we went to the Rebbe's room, standing by the Rebbe's door, when the Rebbe came back from the Suda in the library, and we stopped the Rebbe and we asked him for brachas. So I remember when I asked the Rebbe bracha, the Rebbe answered to me, I got the 4 words, there's a whole story about it, but not for now. And I don't know, but just one little scene, how the Rebbe was extremely paying attention to seeing Chassidim b'simcha. Two little scenes. One scene I remember, I believe it was Rav Shimon Gimel. The Rebbe was coming from his house on Shmini Atzeres, and there were 2 Chassidim, Reb Moshe Grimberg and Levi Pressman, 2 Russian Jews. They took a little chayim, and the Rebbe was coming back from his house, and they were outside, so he started dancing. All of a sudden, they noticed the Rebbe from far. So instead of dancing in circles, they grabbed each other by the shoulders, and they started dancing, facing the Rebbe, staying in one place. So you can see from down the back how all of a sudden the Rebbe's face lit up, smiling, and the smile like bigger and bigger, and as he came closer, he started making his hand. The Tzvei Yidin was dancing from Chasteda. It was like a very personal, paid attention, Tzvei Yidin and a Besimcha. Another scene was once when the Rebbe came out from HaKofes. I'm not sure if it was Leil Shmini Atzeres or it was Leil Simchas Torah. And Heskel said to him, and he was standing there with when the Rebbe came by, so Heskel moved into the door of the elevator in the hallway. And he's standing there and he's crying. The Rebbe walks by and looks at him. He's at zugegangen zum Rebbe und sagt zum Rebbe, wir sollen halten da ein bisschen Emes. So the Rebbe with a big smile, da was a bisschen Emes, a Sach Emes.
I basically I can't let it go without the 2 things that reminded me. My brother was a 4-year-old boy by the front of the room, and the Rebbe went down to the bima, so there was a lot of chaos by the Rebbe's place. And Reb Chaim Ashken, sat down on my brother's head, smashed it into the table. So he was crying and crying and crying, and still crying by the time the Rebbe came back. So all of a sudden, my father picks him up and turns him to, the Rebbe's looking at him. As soon as he turns around, the Rebbe gives him a big smile and says, "What's painful?" And then another scene, very briefly before we conclude, was when by Hakafis in the front, Rabbi Michoel was dancing with Dr. Weiss. They were dancing together, and the Rebbe threw them a kiss as they were dancing. The story of Yankel says about the dream that he had. Anyway, in a few moments we're going to see the video. Thank our esteemed panelists here for sharing with us the very Rabbi from the hall, Bishop with the sound equipment, and all the buffers that helped set up the program. I want to share some very important items, announcements of the schedule for the next few days. Tomorrow, Monday, the Beis Tishrei at 4 p.m. for the Yeshivas Katzman, there will be a tour of Kedusha Shidurim, and at 5 for the Yeshivas Gedalis. At 8 p.m., there will be a shir in Yom Mashiach Deren in Hadar Teira. On Tuesday, at 1 p.m., there will be a special tour of the new exhibition in the Rebbe's library, which will meet in the Chatzar. At 3:15 on Tuesday, there will be Mincha in the Rebbe's house, exclusive for the English-speaking Bachman. Motzei Shabbos Yud Zayin Tishrei, Sukkos and Simchas Torah will be with Rabbi Gordon. 11 p.m. at the Katzman Sukkah, 1374 Union Street in Brooklyn and Kingston. And as the video goes on, I must warn everyone here that if there are any phones out trying to take a video of this video, the video will stop and there won't be any more videos for the rest of Tishrei of exclusive for Sub Edition. So this can go left there. This isn't camp, so we're not going to make any throwing out of the shul announcements, but this is going to be taken very seriously. There are bachim around the room that are looking out for anyone who's trying to take a video of what we're about to see. As the video plays, this is from Rabbi Braden's video from Tafshid Aleph. This was not yet shown, and I will try to give you a brief running commentary if it's necessary as the video moves along.